This conference will now be recorded.
Go.
5:30. Oh, yours is
Right.
6:30.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hello, Matt Rockney here. Can anybody hear me?
Oh, Matt, hear you fine.
Okay,
I can-
looks like I see 6 accounted for. I don't, is Jen Prinz on? Sorry.
You haven't seen me in person yet. That's all right.
There's a picture.
I made a picture.
Mm-hmm.
I'll call the meeting to order. First item to adopt or amend the agenda. Any amendments that we're aware of?
There was one sent out earlier today via email, just adding under number 7, other, line item B. I don't know how many of you saw that email. It was quite late in the afternoon, but there was just one, and it's, I don't know if you have it or not.
7B.
Yep,
Okay.
and that's it.
That amendment. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Steger.
I'll second Rockney. Any discussion? Not all in favor. I'll still do roll call, I guess. Prinz? Venus? Venus?
Might be muted.
Yeah, she's muted.
No, she's caller 2.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
I,
I'll take that as an aye.
yes,
Okay, Booker,
Aye.
Bullseye,
Hi.
Seeger,
Aye.
Hamel,
Aye.
Rockney, aye. Agenda's been approved. Approval of the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from June 8th.
I'll second it, Steger.
Discussion? Not all in favor of Prinz?
Aye.
Venus,
I,
Booker,
Aye.
Bullseye,
Hi.
Seeger,
Aye.
Hamel,
Aye.
Rockney, aye. Motion carries. No public hearings, no old business. 6A, new business, PUD performance standards. Dylan, you got anything on that?
Yes, so recently, in our Highland subdivision up by the golf course, we're moving on to the 6th edition of that subdivision. There's going to be 30 new homes being built up there. And some of the permits have already started coming in. The addresses have gone down on the parcel IDs, and the building official has a couple questions. I spoke with Matt last week or the week before about some of the underlying zones as far as performance standards. One of the recent questions is the one at the bottom that was just raised last week is when it comes to a developer, and this might be just a question you might be able to answer, Matt, but when it comes to a developer's agreement, can you make amendments post the signing and finalization of it?
In the development agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, that's basically a contract between the developer and the city. I would think that can be amended.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, but the building official wanted to make sure, because they have concerns with corner lots and their setbacks for the Highland subdivision. They'd seem,
Sorry to interrupt. Are we talking the 6th or all Highlands?
the subject in question is the 6th, since that, I don't know when the 5th went in, but the 6th has started coming in. And this is where our discussion where the underlying zone was either R1 or R2. One of the other questions that I maybe figured out is how to differentiate between R1 and R2 underlying zones for that the whole addition up there, but they wanted me to report back. And the reason this is under new business is because potentially if we need to make an amendment to a developer agreement, that's why I added it under new business instead of more of an informal discussion in the report section. But
So you got the developers agreement, which usually says, all right, the developer is going to pay for streets, curb, at these curb gutter, at these specs, so many lights, so many fire hydrants, all of that, grading.
Yep.
All approved by the city engineer. It's more. Can somebody,
You have we next.
okay. Anyway, a PUD is more zoning and the way we've at least done it, and I know in the past, some of the your building official had questions on our PUD ordinance, but the way, we've kind of been interpreting it or using it is you've got a underlying zoning designation, whether it's R1 or R2. And then if part of the development plan is to vary from that, you can go through the PUD process and if there's physical variations to like the street width or lot dimensions or parkland dedication that's going to be different than what's called for in our ordinance, as long as it's approved, it would show up on the plat. And that would be it.
Yeah.
Record the plat and there it is. If there's other things, like a lot of times there's reduced setbacks, that wouldn't show up on the plat. It might be incorporated in the developer's agreement, but most of the time it's just like a separate type of approval process that would probably just sit in the city's file that says, okay, for this subdivision, for these lots, setbacks are now 20 feet, 25 feet or something like that. And, and then I guess we'd have to go consult back to the city's file on that. So, but in this case, it's, I suppose there could be some overlap between what's in the development agreement and what's gone through a sort of a PUD type of approval. Is that kind of what we're getting at, or am I way off on that?
No, you're on the right path. One of the situations with the Highland subdivision, it was put under PUD. There was no differentiation between R1 and R2. So we've kind of just figured it out by our minimum lot sizes from those underlying zones. But there's no documentation from this developer's agreement signed in 2004 of the performance setbacks. We've been kind of just playing it by.
Something else in the file though, because when the Highlands was created, some of the bigger lots were all R1, but in more of the higher density sections,
Yep.
I would think there'd be something in our zone in the file somewhere, whether it was Dan King or somebody before him, that would indicate how that was initially zoned. And then if there was a PUD overlay, there should be some guidance on what was all approved then, or is there no such file in existence?
All I have is physical documents that I can find in the office since being here. And there's a lot of handwritten notes is what I'll call it. You know what I mean? There's not, our zoning ordinances don't specify performance setbacks for PUDs. So then we have to assume the underlying zone.
Well, yeah, but I'm saying on a particular subdivision, when that was approved, at least during the platting process or somewhere along the line, the planning commission and council would have said, yes,
Yep.
this is PUD, and yes, setbacks are going to be X instead of Y, and there
Yep.
should be something on that.
Yep. So
Okay.
that's an example. This is an example. I'm just showing Matt performance standards for our PUDs.
Okay.
But what we can find is not a differentiation between interior and corner lots, which is something, that should be considered. The only reason it got brought up is because, in supplemental materials in the back of your guys' packet on new business A, there's a site map that was recently submitted for a building permit for a new home within this Highland 6 subdivision. And it was representative of Bigelow Homes reached out and asked if I could give a preliminary approval of this site plan, to which I did not. And then I consulted with the building official and they did not as well. So this is a corner home, and if you flip it upside down, that's the north point. So if you can see Fairway Street, that would actually be to the north. It runs east and west. Our Highlands Avenue runs north and west on the left side of the site map if you have it flipped the right way. And as you can see, the garage is within 11 feet of the property line. So one of their concerns with this is obstruction of view as far as traffic, because there might be kids, there might be animals that are playing in a yard and things of that nature. And 11 feet just seemed ridiculously small for me. So that's why I consulted with them.
So maybe that was just an oversight at the time of the PUD on how to deal with
I
corner
think,
lots.
I was going to say, this kind of reminded me of Tina's variance. Was that last month or the month before? Just because there are some unique lots, but this one, this new subdivision does kind of have a lot of small lots is what I'll call it. And I don't mind big lots, small lots, as long as it's an agreement, but I do mind corners as far as roadways. So that's why after meeting with them, which I seem to do every week, they just wanted me to ask if developers agreements can be amended, if there's any knowledge of differentiation between R1 and R2 outside of us, assuming by looking at performance standards for minimum lot sizes. And, maybe if this wants to be a new business item as far as changing some of the agreement going forward, because I believe there's going to be a 7th and 8th edition before it's finally completed in the oncoming years.
So a developer's agreement would be probably just a council thing. I suppose it could go through planning commission if we wanted to. But if we're going to actually amend the PUD and more of the zoning end of it, I suppose technically it would require a public hearing since it's sort of a zoning amendment to the overlying PUD. So I don't know if that's going to create more difficulties or not.
Maybe Brian, you would know this. When it comes to, there hasn't been any new subdivision since either of us have been here. I'm just trying to wonder the process. I wonder if they have their, I'll call it preliminary plat map of how they want to divide out parcels, because maybe then we could review that again. It probably was reviewed back in 2004, but you know what I mean, as far as to catch these types of, I'll call them potential problems for neighborhoods. And the other thing with this home, and this is, his name was Matt Simon from Bigelow Homes. His concern was, it's a small lot, but what else can he really do? But we also don't want to say yes and obstruct view, and then all of a sudden we got a dog that got hit by a car, and a year from now, or worse.
I would think you're right in the fact that if it was left out of the PUD, the performance, the standards they put in there, then it would revert back to whatever the
Underlying
zoning is. It's R1.
Well, this one would be considered R2 just because it's a smaller lot. So, but this is the other reason why I have it here is because the underlying zone being R2, the corner yard setbacks is only 12 feet. So then this is only, which is still too small for a corner lot, as far as anybody. It just seemed like it could be work. That's why, I put it under new business because we might be reaching out to, would it be Bigelow still, or is it?
Yeah, I would say that's the right way to go. I think it would be easier to ask for a variance on the other off the corner,
Yeah.
And do we even want to go down the road of a variance, or do we want to just amend the PUD to firm up some of the variations from the zoning district?
Sure. Or put the standards in there for corners.
For corners.
Yeah, maybe see, what Matt Simon says about that. I imagine there's more like that.
I would assume so. Like I said, this one just got put in, I believe this was last week or maybe the week before, whenever I reached out to you that day. So it just seems like it's going to be a concern for the building official to approve some of these type of deal. When I'll reach out to Matt Simon and see what type of map I can get. I also have the address map, so I can look at approximations via the GIS, but so this one I guess can be more of a report for now and new business for later.
So you're looking at existing ones that were already approved and built and making sure they're in conformity, or we don't want to create a bunch of non-conforming buildings, right?
There's that problem as well. And that's kind of also what line item or new business B is.
Well, my opinion too is that, those corner lots, it's just like we were talking about fences. You don't want to do obstructive vision. Down here where I'm staying right now, it's almost like they plan stuff on the corners. It's crazy. And I don't want to see us doing that.
By the way, Tom, I still plan on doing the little tour of the town with you sometime when I get a little bit extra time.
Sounds good. We'll be back the end of the month.
I guess we could table this. I'll reach out to Matt
All right.
and get some more clarity on where the headed.
Anybody have questions on that? Otherwise, I'll just table it and move on to B. What do you have on that, Dylan?
Yeah, so this is stemming from another meeting with the building official. There's been 2 recent inquiries into building permits for pole sheds. As far as our ordinances go, it specifies in subdivision 3, line number 7, I've copied it below, that any type of accessory structure needs to be in likeness of the principal structure, including the shingles or the siding, I should say, in the roofs. But the building official says, you know, if this is true, most sheds are non-conformance that come in, you know what I mean, that are over 200 square feet, and a lot of garages do too. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. So this one's more of a, is the sentiment towards pole sheds still the same? Not allowed within residential districts. You know, this is more of a conversation. I spoke with, you know, Kim, she'll be watching this. She doesn't like pole sheds. I guess I don't like pole sheds then too. I don't know.
I would say, yeah, we don't want pole sheds. You know, and I don't know that most sheds would be non-compliant. I mean, most sheds I see now that are 200 square feet or larger have some sort of siding.
Some
Usually
do,
painted
yeah.
the same color as the house. They've got shingled roofs.
Well, that was another point of contention that they brought up, is if, you know, say it doesn't have necessarily house siding on it, can it be painted the same as if it's a, you know, pole shed or a shed and match the house? See how there's just some gray areas there that, you know, Roger and Casey, they don't want to be the final decision maker on these things. So that's why we meet all the time.
I don't know if you could think of every example. It's just going to have to be a judgment call at some point.
Yeah.
But if they're uncomfortable, City Hall could make that call, I suppose, right?
Sure. I agree.
There's a provision, the end of that subdivision 37 talks about which buildings in which the design is architecturally complementary to the principal structure.
I know.
That kind of leaves it open to,
It does, yeah.
you know.
That's zoning right there.
Yeah. I guess, you know, so with this one, the first one is more problematic because it can be problematic with, you know, obstruction of view. This one is just, seems like subjective to me, so I think we can handle that one internally.
I don't know. What do you think about pole sheds in town?
Pole sheds, no, but like I said, they got these barnyards that buy them sheds that you can put up. Most of them that are bought, I feel do not match the residents. Most recent look at Johnson's. They had to get a variance on that one. That don't match their house. It still's got shingles, but in the standpoint of exterior, it does not. But most people that buy sheds, I feel that do not. My neighbor down the road just put one of the Menards metal ones up.
That's less than 200 square feet.
That one probably is.
Yeah.
You get engineering on a
Yeah.
bigger one.
I don't know, is that within the general expectation that it should design? I think people who buy those things from whoever sells them and they put them on skids or whatever, if they have to anchor them to the ground, I don't think there's an expectation that it has to be a replica of the house.
Right, we've got a red one on Jefferson.
Red one.
Yeah,
Looks like
and it
barn.
actually looks quite nice.
It's very nice. Did a nice job.
So this is another point for this one, because, you know, if you're asking me, I don't care if the house is blue and the shed is red, but
I don't think people in the city want everything to be so cookie cutter and
No, but pole sheds, the cheap construction kind of stuff, yeah, that's questionable.
But what classifies as a pole shed though, too?
Right. Yep.
When I think of a pole shed, I think of a big old barn out at the farm where you're parking your tractors and your wagons.
yeah.
So then you have a whole bunch of other different guidelines, standards.
Well, that's the other thing. So, you know, I added in the word most residential districts because most agriculture districts have pole sheds just because of the need for them. You know, no one's going to build a 20 by 40 or 100 by 200 garage, they're gonna get a pole shed just because they need it for their agriculture living.
But you're not gonna see that in town.
From the building.
Feel comfortable with that last line that Brian read off where,
Architecture,
if it's not an exact replica, that it's architecturally complementary? Do you feel you can make that judgment call without?
it is, I think what I'll do is I'll just, if I have to consult with Brian or do that, we'll make a decision in-house. I think one of the reasons why things like, this one pop up is just because Roger and Casey, they read the ordinances, they see that it doesn't match the ordinance, they don't want to allow it. We don't want to keep declining permits, But if you're willing to check out pictures of sheds and garages with me, we'll help Roger and Casey out, make sure they're complimentary or not.
But I also,
Building official hat on where they're concerned about distances and measurements down to the inch versus zoning's much more of a loosey-goosey thing.
Sure.
but we also got them do-it-yourselfers where you buy them kits at Menards.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not engineered or what design, but
Yeah.
there's people out there that can build a shed from lumber at Menards or them kits that they have. So, I mean,
Well, so we actually spoke about the kits too, because this brings up a bigger question as far as the world right now and lumber prices. It's, can we present the people a better, I labeled it alternative construction options because we're limiting building or the economy is limiting the ability to build stuff right now. And that's why pole sheds keep coming in and things
it
that
can't be
deviate.
bad. We got 49 new building permits in Q2. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it can't be deteriorating or steering people away.
Yeah, it's finding that right balance.
Yeah.
I think the key to me would be the shingle roof. Beyond that, walls, you're kind of to the
But how about the
subjective.
steel roofs? You're starting to see people.
Yeah,
put
that's right.
walls. I
That's
mean,
what Casey brought up too. Yeah.
That's
They
an
last
option that,
longer.
I mean,
Well, would we even allow that in town? You could put a steel roof on that looks like shingles, but would we allow a steel barn-looking roof in the middle of town on a house?
Already happening.
Yeah.
yeah.
I,
I don't know here in town, but I know in Rochester, you see it, not a lot, but there's a lot of them. I haven't seen any here in town, but it's becoming a lot more common because lasts longer than shingles.
well, that's the thing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's going to become more and more popular too in the coming years. So are we going to keep headbutting ordinances when times are changing or,
With the times and let it be more of a dynamic document. Instead of so rigid and, operating 30 years ago.
Sure. Well, that's the other thing. So that's why I added at the end, just wondering if the sentiment of this ordinance still remains.
Leaving it. I don't know if we have to amend it as long as you're comfortable with that architecturally compatible, complementary
Sure.
language. But that's just me.
I'm okay with that.
Objective police, but I'll rope Brian into it with me.
Welcome to your position.
Yeah.
Questions on that from anybody? So basically no action on that, right?
No, I mean, that's one of those where I added it to the business
Yep.
because if we wanted to,
But if it starts becoming more and more of a problem, right?
sure.
All right, well then on to 6C variance request.
All right, so to put this one simply, it's a pole shed. Yeah, so this one, if you recognize the address, it's on County 10. It's out very southwest of town. There's a map in the supplemental materials that'll show that it's off County 10. There are, if you've ever driven out there, it's farmland, and then this random house.
Is it city property?
It is, it's on their southern border is the end of our city lines. And so they are just within, that one up.
Oh, out by Jackson's there then?
Yeah.
I think it's an old Jackson house.
And then the property.
Oh, is that where they got that Chino?
No, that's across the road.
It's where they used to have the sled dogs.
Yep, so this gentleman just recently put in a building permit for building essentially a pole shed. And so I reached out to him, I've met with him twice and told him how up until now, pole sheds are not allowed within residential districts. And that's where the problem in this one lies, is that it's considered R1 as far as our zoning map. Even though it's surrounded by agriculture, or the Brenda Lumen property got rezoned to commercial before that storage shed inquiry a couple months ago. So I told him, I'm sorry, your property is R1, but I'm not going to pass a building permit. And I told him that he has the option of a variance, which he took. The variance application has come in. As far as the process for variances, just like last time, this one's going to be more of an application review, which I've done. I wanted to introduce it to you, and we should probably set a public hearing and then make a decision next month. But in the time between now and our public hearing, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out. It's a multifaceted variance. It mostly just stems to the zoning of what it is. Even though it's surrounded by ag land, it exceeds the maximum square footage. The footprint of the accessory structures are greater than that of the principal structure. As you can see, he has quite the tiny house. That was a joke that he said why he wants a variance. But anyways, and then design appearance, just like we were talking about in the last topic, is going to be different than the principal structure. So that is why he says submitted a variance application.
Have we seen the actual layout of where he's gonna put it on the property?
Yep, he just actually, I should have drew it in there, but so if you're looking at the supplemental materials and the house, when it comes to a point, that is the north point. The house is the most northern structure. There's a detached garage below it. He wants it essentially from the right side or north side of his driveway, or impeding the driveway, somewhere in the front of his house. That's where he wants it. But that, whether we allow.
Is there any setbacks issues on that?
No, so we checked the setbacks for R1, and it's, even if it's 15 feet, he had enough room. But before I give him the okay on checking setbacks and stuff, I'm going to give him the okay if it's even okay, So.
And how big does he want to build this pole
I
shed?
believe it's 20 by 40. I have the application with me. It's in our supplemental materials. I believe I put a copy.
Is it gonna be done by a builder or a contractor, or is it gonna be?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll find that out once he once I receive the building permit, because then that'll have the contractor information. But as of right now, I'm not going to receive a building permit before he, I'm not gonna make him pay for a building permit or start doing plan review on a building permit before I can tell him yes or no, he can do it or not.
What's this land here? I'm just trying to figure out what
So that is, if I remember.
that would go up to Grover's there?
Yeah,
Okay.
past Grover's before, on the left as you're going around the curve.
Okay, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I was curious why that's zoned R1. That just doesn't seem right for that area. But
So I was kind of wondering.
I think any type of new annexation, the default is R1,
Yep.
and then we can rezone. But, the question is with the ag land around there, we even want, and who knows about the future use?
Well, this is the one we talked about too, if we rezoned them to a different zone, it could make his house non-conforming. It could,
Yes.
we'd have to subdivide and rezone potentially. It gets a lot more messier that way.
Yes.
well, isn't this about where that frontage road is supposed to go through sometime too?
So yes, and I brought that up with him too. The frontage road would actually come in on the smaller parcel to the left. It's a little triangle.
Okay.
And so I made him aware of our future roadmap and how, if he has a pole shed and he does machining for a business, a livelihood, he doesn't do it on site. He goes to work for that, but maybe that's a future perk for him.
How big is that property?
This one?
Yeah.
I believe it's 3.1 acres. So it's a good sized property. He has more than enough room anywhere for that type of structure, or the size of structure, but the type of structure is what's in question here. So that's why the variance application came in, and the variance application is cleaner than a rezoning or subdividing and then rezoning.
Yeah.
And that makes things non-conforming.
Compatibility with the area, no problem. But, and it's right on the edge of city limits. maybe that's a mitigating factor, but the practical difficulties, and he's creating this himself,
Yep,
we're gonna have to really try to stretch to make it fly.
yep. I mean, either way, I agree. I told him best and worst case scenarios and what he had going for him and what he has going against him. So he's okay with this, either decision.
I think we would
This
want
is
to
Beth.
see.
Can you hear me?
Yep,
Okay. That entire parcel is in the AE flood zone, which is a 100-year
yep.
flood area. Does that matter?
Yes, so I showed him what's called the FEMA for Met map. So we were checking out the flood zone, and I believe if I remember correctly, it's been 2 weeks now, is why he wanted to put the pole shed right in front of his house instead of in all the land he seemingly has because of flood zone considerations. But that will be another thing that's also checked once we get to the building permit process. But as of right now, we don't have, first things first type of deal.
Is there any concerns about running essentially a commercial business in an R1?
So I asked him that, and what he told me is he will not be running a commercial business, but there's signs pointing to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So public hearing, Or do you wanna-
If he's paid the fee and filed the app, we have no choice but to call a public hearing, I would say.
But we're gonna want documentation on how he's meeting all those variance criteria, right?
yep,
Or how he proposes to meet all those criteria for a variance.
Is that not in his app?
his application, here, I'll pull it up here. So, okay, I put subdivision 12A3. Like you said, it's not going to alter the essential character of the land. And then the other one, without reading it real quick, is one of those circumstances that he didn't put on himself is he didn't choose R1 zoning, but there are a few of them that go against them.
Yeah, plenty of arguments why maybe this is okay. But we also have to think about other similar properties around the edge of the city. How are other owners gonna, I imagine, none of the neighbors are gonna object to it,
Yeah,
but, how we deal with similar properties, and then future expansion of the city at some point, is somebody gonna, 20 years down the road, say, why did you let him build that shed there? Now that's just makes this whole area look ugly,
well,
type of thing.
that's another consideration too, because like I said, if he was agriculture, it's more acceptable here, but we don't want that agriculture in the future either. We want this to either be, most likely, it'd be ideal if this was commercial. Industrial could be acceptable if it's light industrial, but you usually want to keep that. I would like to see industrial farther north and this to be commercial, especially with that road coming in there whenever it does. It'd be ideal for a commercial, nothing else. It'd be considered highway commercial as well.
Mm-hmm.
Any other preliminary thoughts, or I suppose we should schedule a public hearing for the August?
Yep, I don't even know the date.
August 10th?
Is that what it is?
Staff have any
No, I just think that,
strong opinions?
yeah, no, I think you're right in the fact that it's outside of town right now. But I think it's not up for us to make the argument for him either, I think he should tell us why, all those factors and then we can consider that, or you can consider that, excuse me. Not against it, I'll say that.
Yeah.
I'm not against it.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily against it either, but like I said, since it's R1, I didn't want to say yes to his building permit when it goes against some of the ordinances here. And so when he asked what he could do, the only thing I could think of was a variance outside of the subdividing and rezoning. And so that's what he took that route immediately.
Well, I'm personally not against it either. Just because our future expansion for residential is not out that way. It's going to be commercial or light industrial. So could that fit in? Yes. Could it not? Depending on what that commercial or that light industrial, I mean, if they put a hotel up there at a water park or a bar and grill, it's not going to fit in. But if it's the Waters expands or Steve Johnson builds another whatever, I mean, the chance of it fitting in is a lot better. But again, I agree with Brian that let's see how well he comes prepared.
Well, to let everyone know, it's just going to be answers to subdivision 12A3, yeses or nos to those 5 or 6, whatever they are, criteria for variances. But I'll recommend to him that he maybe even get in a conceptual drawing of the exact location. I believe he had one of those, he said, just to get some more information.
But I also think we need to make sure we brought it up and make it clear that he can't run a commercial business on the R1 property.
Yep.
And is it probably going to happen where he's doing some machining for his buddies or a friend? Yeah, it happens all the time. It happens
Like a
all over the
hobbyist,
town in
yeah.
different things, if it's woodworking or machining or quilting.
Yeah.
I think, maybe yeses and nos, but maybe encourage him to
But-
put a little thought and a little narrative with those and of why, because that gives you guys something to consider rather than us, or
Yeah.
you guys trying to come up with reasoning why.
And he'll be here too, right? Because they have to be at the public hearing. So, yep, yeah. Answer any questions. I agree.
When do we set these, 5:35 usually?
Yeah.
I guess I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing for August 10th at 5:35 PM. Any discussion? If not, all in favor for the public hearing at 5:35 PM, August 10th. Prince?
Aye.
Hooper?
Aye.
Bullseye?
Aye.
Eager?
Hi.
Hamel? Aye. Rockne, aye. Motion carries. Number 7A.
So this one's a simple one. I just wanted to, at the end of June is the completion of the second quarter. So I wanted to update everybody that there's been 49 building permits this quarter. Which,
Wow.
Todd, is that a lot compared to normal?
Apparently lumber prices don't matter,
Yeah. I think people are so anxious from being shut down last year, that there's quite a bit of activity in new homes and things like that. But that's pretty much it. Just a small report for that one.
Okay, and then B, residential pools.
This one's more of a report as well. And I was just looking through the packet and I can see that I did not attach what the building official sent over. It's essentially a compilation of the Minnesota State Building Code, the Minnesota Residential Code, and the Minnesota Energy Code regarding residential pools. They have found in our ordinances that under our pools and spas section that building permits are not listed, only a zoning permit, but we have not issued as a city a zoning permit in over 13 years. It's just building permits. So we put it simply, they did the legwork and felt comfortable with it, as where they don't feel comfortable other times. And so we now will be doing building permits for pools over the certain sizes that were specified in our ordinances. But we have more criteria as far as performance standards to grant those permits.
We've adopted state building code, right? So
Yeah.
that's,
And it all comes out of there. We're gonna put this out on our website,
Yeah.
our new
Things like that would
communication GoGov tool, social media, just to get it out there to make sure everybody knows.
No, the existing is grandfathered in, correct?
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna go run around looking for
No.
them. Maybe the one, if we had a couple of them this year, we might follow up on those. But
Yeah, the reason this one came up is because we had quite a large pool inquiry. It's, I don't remember, it was like 18 feet by 30 feet and 5 feet deep in-ground pool. And so the building official didn't feel comfortable with our ordinance language, so they sought out their own from, because they service other communities as well. And so they gave us a checklist to relay to people about how pools should be according to these codes. Above ground is included when it's over 5,000 gallons and
2 feet deep,
Yeah.
or whatever the criteria is. That's code stuff. So there's code stuff, and then there's things by ordinance that we can put in.
Yeah.
Things like fencing, that is
Well, that's
actually in the
code too.
pool,
Yeah,
but fencing, things like that.
setbacks.
Exceptions to fencing. A lot of times above ground pools, if the walls of the pool are, I can't remember, 3 feet high or 4 feet high, you can pull the ladder and that, you don't have to have a fence then.
Yep.
But that's the type of stuff that would probably need to be in ordinance at some point.
We don't have the ordinance.
We
We
don't think I have
do,
anything in there, right?
we do. It's I want to say it's page 39 and 40 because I've looked at it a few times over the past week. It's just a small section that specifies only a fence, doesn't touch on ladders and doesn't touch on removable covers, which that seems to be the norm. It's just whenever it was put in, there's been updates post then. So our ordinance needed some extra language and they sent it over. And so that's what they're going to use, kind of like an intern, like we did that one time. But I just wanted to update everybody in case they, get an inquiry about a pool and they go to our ordinances and they don't know how to recommend to people. We now have language.
But whatever they're proposing is consistent with the building code. So that's our fallback, right?
Yep, it's not something that, they made up or anything. They just pulled it from those 3 sources.
Consistent with with the codes.
Yep.
And with what's being done in the areas as well.
Yep.
Any questions on that? Otherwise, I think we're at number 8. Anybody else have any?
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to talk about the?
Go ahead.
All right, so the governor got rid of the state of emergency. That ended. That's what allowed us to have these remote meetings. There are a couple of exceptions that we could use to continue to have a remote meeting, and one of those is a medical exception. If you're sick and you can't make it to the meeting, you can call in or be on video like this. The other exception is for interactive technology, which means we have to hear and see all the members. We have to have somebody present at the meeting location, which we do, and then open to the public. So 2 of the 3 are easy. With the way we're doing it here, it would technically meet the exception, except Joan would have to have her camera on, and so would Bev, to meet the exception to be remote. I guess we're trying to encourage back to in-person meetings. I don't know how you feel, Matt, as the chair, but that's the easiest way. Otherwise, at some point we could have to answer to how can you have an interactive meeting or have a remote meeting? And we'd have to show our video that we can see and hear everybody.
I think it's best to go back to City Hall and have our meetings.
All right. I guess maybe at the next meeting, we could try to plan on that unless if somebody has strong feelings, if they can appear by video and we can hear you, sounds like that's still allowed.
I would would say if something comes up for somebody and they can't be here in person, just let Dylan know that you're going to be here, on video. Or, a medical exception, that's another one. There's just two of them, so. One way or the other, let Dylan know if you're not going to be here in person.
All right.
That's right.
If not anything else, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
I have a question. I have a question. I'm wondering about truck and semi-traffic on our city streets. What regulations do we have there? We have a lot of 18-wheelers, big trucks going into the new Wobig business over here. And they're coming up 13th and then coming up 9th. And could they go around to Jefferson and come in that way so they weren't coming up 13th and then making the corner at Meyerhoffers and coming up 9th?
Yes, that's a discussion we have to have. Technically, through the town should not be a truck route. We have designated truck routes, down Main Street. And Jefferson would be a 10-ton road, and it's going to be when we redo it too. So that would be the preferable route for trucks. I did get a call from one other person that lives down the hill about this as well. I haven't seen any big ones, but of course you live right there, so you're watching them come by.
Yeah, they're almost every day, and sometimes there's a couple, in a day. But they're the big 18-wheelers that come up the street.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
All the way from Highway 58, I imagine.
Yep, we'll have a conversation with them to make sure. I would assume 4th Street or 10 is probably, it's a 10-ton road too. That would be a truck route as well. So they could go out that way and come in the back way on the gravel, and then go back out that way. Or like you said, Jefferson, which is a tough corner for an 18-wheeler. But yeah, that's a conversation we're gonna have to have with them up there. Like you said, I'm assuming it's for the microgreens place, right?
I don't know what they're hauling out of there, but I've seen them load, those big ones with their green stuff that they do. Also, is there anything in the plans to do the gravel road up here by Wobig? What's happening with that? Who's maintaining that now?
Well, the city owns the road now, so we're maintaining it. When Mr. Wobig, if and when he decides to do more development up there, he will take the road on. But in the meantime, the city does not have a plan to pave the road on our own.
Is the city taking care of the road right now?
We are, yep, and we treated it. We put that, whatever you put down to keep the dust, chloride, yeah.
Calcium chloride, yeah.
Yep, so we'll continue to do that while it's gravel. But yeah, until some development happens up there other than the non-conforming development that was brought in, the road will remain gravel.
And then when they fixed the blacktop road up here, they repaired the whole thing that they tore up, but there's this strip on our side of the street that is totally ruined. Are they going to do anything to fix that, or is that going to stay ruined permanently?
Ruined? Was it bad before they did the work?
It was bad before they tore it up, and they didn't tear up. Say from our driveway on up to the gravel, they didn't tear it up. They just left it, and there's places that it's dirt coming through, and other places where the blacktop is totally caving in and checkered.
Yep, right below Meyerhofer's driveway is the same way.
Right. So what do you plan on doing?
I'd have to talk to Mike Olson to see when that's on a schedule, if it's on a schedule of any kind, to be fixed up.
Crazy they didn't do it when they had everything here, isn't it?
Yeah, that was to do with Mr. That was his doing, or his, when they brought the water to the building. So he was responsible for just what they tore up, the rest of the road. So.
Okay. But you will check into the truck traffic thing then?
Absolutely. Yep. I need to make a trip up. We're gonna go up and talk to the new business owners up there, the Greenstead. Dylan and I need to make a trip up to talk to them about the new business and welcome them, and we'll broach that conversation while we're up there.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Right.
Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You invited Ziva to this.